On a frozen forest road in northern Washington, a Navy SEAL on leave eased his truck to a stop as snow swept sideways through the trees. Because ahead of him, in the white silence, he saw something that didn't belong there. A young woman on crutches. One leg gone. A German shepherd walking close at her side, guarding her every step. Snow soaked her coat. The wind cut through her like glass. Each step forward looked heavier than the last. She didn't wave for help, didn't look back. She just kept moving, as if surviving the night wasn't a choice anymore, but something she had been forced to learn alone. The SEAL stepped out into the storm, snow biting at his face, and spoke calmly, without urgency, without fear. "Ride with me. No one should face a night like this alone." Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. And if this story moves you, hit subscribe so you never miss another tale of loyalty, courage, and heart. Your support truly means the world. Snow drifted through the pines of northern Washington, muffling the forest and turning the road ahead into a pale, endless corridor of silence. Mason Cole had learned long ago how to move through silence. At 35, the U.S. Navy SEAL sat behind the wheel of his pickup with the posture of a man who never fully relaxed, even when nothing seemed to be happening. Broad-shouldered and powerfully built, he carried his strength without display. His dark hair was cut short in regulation style, flecked now with the first hints of gray at the temples. A trimmed beard shadowed a face shaped by sharp angles and restraint, the kind that rarely betrayed emotion. His eyes, steady and observant, had seen too much to look away easily. Only a week earlier, those same eyes had stared across deserts in Iraq and Syria. Operation Silent Lantern had lasted a full year. Night extractions, long surveillance, civilian rescues that never made the news, losses that never reached headlines. Mason had done his job with precision, but precision came at a cost. When he returned to base, his commander called him in, not with ceremony, not with congratulations. The commander studied him for a long moment and spoke plainly. Mason had been holding himself together on discipline alone. That worked in combat, but it hollowed men out if left unchecked. The order came quietly but firmly. 6 months of leave, personally approved. Not for travel, not for celebration. But to learn how to breathe like an ordinary man again before the next mission. The unit didn't need a SEAL who could perform flawlessly while breaking inside. Mason accepted the decision without argument. He always did. Now, he drove north through the Okanogan-Wenatchee forest, returning to a cabin and a small farm he hadn't truly lived in for years. The land waited the way it always had, patient, indifferent, unchanged. So much else had changed. 6 years earlier, Mason had married Brielle Hart, his high school sweetheart. She had been bright and striking then, with honey blonde hair and a smile that drew people in easily. She worked in interior design, a profession built on warmth and aesthetics, and she loved plans, gatherings, and visible signs of stability. In the beginning, she told him she understood his career. She told him love would be enough. It wasn't. On the first anniversary of their marriage, Mason was deployed and unreachable, deep inside a classified operation in the Middle East. The call came when he was finally allowed one brief connection. Brielle's voice had been calm, practiced. She said she was tired of being alone, tired of holidays spent fixing broken doors herself, tired of sleeping beside absence. She said she had met someone else, Trent Caldwell, a wealthy construction contractor who was always present, always available, always safe. Mason had listened in silence. He did not beg. He did not argue. The mission came first. Even as his marriage ended through static and distance, he protected families he would never meet. He just couldn't save his own. The road narrowed as the storm thickened. Snow fell heavier now, blown sideways by sharp gusts of wind. Mason eased his speed, senses alert. That was when he saw her, a figure ahead barely visible through the white, a young woman moving slowly along the shoulder of the road. She leaned heavily on a pair of crutches, her balance careful and deliberate. One leg was gone, replaced by a prosthetic hidden beneath soaked fabric. Beside her walked a German shepherd, large and alert, its thick black and tan coat already dusted with snow. Mason slowed the truck to a controlled stop. The woman was in her late 20s, slim but tense with exhaustion. Dark auburn hair clung wetly to her cheeks beneath a knit cap pulled low. Her skin was pale from cold, lips tinged blue, but her eyes were sharp, wary, intelligent, and untrusting. She kept one hand tightly wrapped around the dog's leash, as if it anchored her to the ground. The dog, about 4 years old, stood protectively at her side. Strong, broad-chested, with intelligent amber eyes, it positioned itself subtly between Mason and the woman, muscles coiled but calm. This was not an aggressive animal. It was a trained guardian, loyal and deliberate. Mason lowered his window. "I'm not stopping traffic," he said evenly. His voice was deep, steady, carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without raising it. "There's no town for miles." She glanced at his jacket, at the faint outline of military bearing in the way he held himself. Her grip tightened. Experience had taught her caution. The wind howled between them. Mason met her gaze without pressing forward and said quietly, firmly, "Ride with me. No one should face a night like this alone." The words weren't dramatic. They weren't rehearsed. They were simply true. She hesitated, breath visible in short, shallow bursts. Pride warred with survival. She had learned not to trust easily. But the storm didn't care about pride, and one leg made endurance a losing battle. Slowly, she nodded. The dog relaxed just enough to signal acceptance. Mason stepped out, helped her into the passenger seat with careful respect, then opened the back door for the German shepherd, who climbed in without resistance, settling protectively behind her. As Mason pulled back onto the road, the heater began to work against the cold. Neither of them spoke. Snow swallowed their tire tracks behind them, but for the first time that night, neither of them was moving forward alone. The heater hummed softly as Mason's truck moved deeper into the forest road, snow whispering beneath the tires. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was cautious, like two wounded animals sharing the same shelter without yet trusting it. Ellie Wren sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her hands folded in her lap, fingers pale from cold and tension. Up close, Mason could see she was 27 at most, her face still young but etched with a kind of exhaustion that didn't belong to her age. She was slim, almost fragile in build, with narrow shoulders and a posture trained to compensate for loss. Her auburn hair, darkened by melted snow, fell in loose strands from beneath a knitted hat. Her skin was fair, marked by the faint shadows of sleepless nights. Her eyes were gray-green, sharp and observant, the eyes of someone who had learned to read danger quickly. Atlas, the German shepherd, lay across the back seat, 4 years old and powerfully built. His coat was thick and well cared for, his ears alert even as his body relaxed slightly in the warmth. He watched Mason through the rearview mirror, not aggressively but attentively, as if measuring the man's intentions. This dog wasn't a stray. He was a companion, a protector. After a mile of silence, Ellie finally spoke. "It's my birthday," she said quietly, not looking at Mason. Her voice was steady, but it carried a flatness that suggested the words meant very little to her now. Mason glanced at her briefly, then back to the road. He didn't say, "I'm sorry." He didn't offer hollow comfort. He simply nodded, acknowledging the weight of the statement. Ellie took a slow breath. "I didn't plan to be out there. I wasn't wandering." She paused, choosing her words carefully, as if saying the wrong thing might make this fragile safety disappear. "I was staying with my aunt," she continued. "Her name is Ruth Wren." The name carried no warmth when she spoke it. Ruth was a woman in her early 60s, tall and rigid, with iron-gray hair always pulled into a tight bun and a face shaped by years of stern conviction. She belonged to a small, insular religious community on the edge of town, one that clung to old doctrines and stricter interpretations of suffering. Ruth believed hardship was a test sent by God. She believed weakness, especially visible weakness, was something to be corrected or cast out. Ellie had lived under Ruth's roof since the accident. "They don't say it outright," Ellie said, her gaze fixed on the snow-blurred windshield. "But everyone knows what they think, that being broken means you're unfinished, that you remind them of things they don't want to face." She shifted slightly, adjusting the prosthetic hidden beneath her coat. The movement was practiced, automatic. Mason noticed how carefully she controlled her balance, how every motion was deliberate. The argument had started over something small, it always did.